What's up, everybody? We're back. I got a hot cup of coffee. I got Byron Horton on the other line, and we are ready for another episode. Finally, it's been a long time coming of Coffee with Cody, hunting season edition. We are in the midst of it, Byron.
Oh, it is full send, my friend. I have yet to talk to you on the phone. You had shot a nice buck here in the last week. And man, dude, it is mid-October. I mean, it is full blown, man. I'm jacked up. I don't have the best lead on a buck, so that is driving me crazy, but it's here.
Yeah, man, I cannot believe how quick the last few weeks has gone by. I mean, we talked in late September, and we were kind of game planning on early season. It was actually right before you headed to Kentucky, and man, it's already the 15th of October. There's one down. I mean, it's crazy, man. There's been a it's been a wild ride so far.
Yeah, and we could not have asked for better weather to kick the season off. And I'm sure we're going to get into some of those details of your hunt in early October. But you know, the addiction staff also has been having a great early part of season, knocking down some quality bucks and a good number of bucks at that too.
Yeah, man. I mean, I, I've been seeing it all across the board with just custom gear customers in general. Like a lot of people are getting out with these new setups that they got, and they're getting into a groove, and they're moving a little bit more, and they're connecting. Like, it's been awesome. There's been a lot of good testimonials out there, and a lot of people, being successful with the new stuff.
Yeah, and I think we should plug Fan Friday. So every Friday on the Custom Gear Instagram story, we're loving seeing, customers and staff guys posting their setups, cool mobile hunting pics. Like, that is something that I think a lot of people are liking, because it is something that, you may see something where a guy has his double sticks on there and attaches them in a certain method, and maybe that's something you use going forward. I know my setup this year is like 13 pounds lighter than 2 years ago. And like, just the way I can scout and walk through the timber is so much easier. The camera arm, one piece, small, easy to set up. It's so much better than even 2 years ago.
Yeah, dude, it's funny because I get a lot of people that are saying the same thing that you are. And I'm kind of thinking like, well, I mean, it's been, this stuff is just coming out for a lot of people, but I mean, I don't know if I've shaved 13 pounds off. I've been pretty light here for a while. I mean, I switched over to the 2-stick method years ago, and was always pretty low, compact. I had the Frankenstand, as you know, but even now, like, what I'm jazzed about is to see my baby really shine now. Like the point 0.5 last year was like, okay, we need to do it. Like, at first we were hesitant of making it. And after I, just pounded the 1.0 all year last year, and then a little bit of the ambush, um, it was just one of those things like, okay, it's got to be done. And now having it and hunting with the actual production final model, it's just, I couldn't be more than pleased. And, along those lines of like customizing setups and stuff. So I've been getting a lot of people that have been following along. I've been trying to do more, just real time, kind of follow me along through the season, if you will.
Yeah, and dude, I am very impressed with the product you're putting out there, because for a couple years we've said, dude, it'd be cool if Cody, you kind of documented your hunts video style, and for those of you that haven't clicked Cody's story, like, it's, you get a little insight to what you're thinking on your setups. You give pretty cool little, like, you know, showing your style, what you're doing, what you're thinking, and then there's some buck footage. I mean, you can't get any better than that.
Yeah, man, there's, and I've been wanting to do this for years now. It's just it's pulling the trigger and actually doing it. And I've always filmed, but now I'm looking at it differently. I'm not looking at like filming the hunts. I'm looking at documenting my process. So, and I apologize. I mean, I'm sure they're probably hard to watch or whatnot, but I wanted to be as transparent and just as cut and dry as possible to make it easier on myself. I'm not a video producer or anything like that, but, and that's the thing. And it was driving me nuts because, so I'm down in Illinois, right? I'm trying to document like, you know, when I went out and I was scouting, I kicked up that buck and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And I'm taking the camera with me at all times. And I'm uploading these videos and the reception is so horrible down there. So like, and then I get another one in the queue and then I get another one and I'm trying to, then I realize when I go back and watch them, like it like other shorter ones uploaded quicker than the other ones.
Mm.
So like they started to mix up and like you'd hear me talk about, you know, one thing in reverse. So anyway, I mean, it's been, I'm working out the kinks, man, but I think anybody who's been following along, I've been getting a lot of good feedback on it. So hopefully people enjoy it and they're liking it, and hopefully it'll get better as it goes on. But
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And honestly, it's funny. Your Instagram is kind of how I learned of this buck being killed. Like there was no text exchange. You and I have postponed a phone call for this podcast in particular so that I can ask the questions, I can give like hearing a story firsthand experience, you know.
you know what's crazy? And this might, I don't know, I might get, this may be kind of messed up in a way, but I didn't like the only person that I told about that deer, like personally, it was my wife. Like in that, and I just, ever since I can remember, like I just call her right away when I shoot one. And like, I mean, for years, you know, going back years and years and years. And it's just something that we kind of, you know, you know, she expects that call. And when the phone rings at that certain time, and it's weird because every time I call her, she knows right when she answers the phone. And she's like, you got it done. And I'm like, and I'm always like, yeah, like, you know, how, and so it's cool. But, so yeah, but I didn't tell anybody. So I actually got a couple texts that were kind of like, oh, like, nice to know you shot, like, oh, nice to know you shot one. But dude, honestly, I've taken a step back for me, this year in general in, in everything that the season entails and what it means to me. And I've been more active on the social media, but as far as everything else, I've been just immersing myself in the process, in the timber, in the deer, just in enjoying it. I've been smelling the roses and I've just been not worrying about anything. Like and it's been refreshing. And even with the camera thing, it's just it's a different take on the season and I feel like I'm getting back to where I used to be before it got complicated, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I can hear it in your voice just in that last explanation. You've got a pep in your step, man. I feel like you got a good perspective, a little positive
And
vibes going on. It's awesome.
it,
It's refreshing.
well, and it's and some would say like, oh yeah, of course you got a pep in your step. You just shot a buck, but like it's funny. But I was actually talking. I was talking to um I can't remember who I was talking to, but I was talking to somebody, and it was probably like a day before I killed. And he was like, dude, he's like, and I was just completely, and he said the exact same thing. He's like, oh, he's like, you just seem like you're in a better mood, or you're just like kind of not. And I think it was about hunting, but I was just like, oh yeah, whatever. I'm gonna get out there and I'll find one and I'll kill one, like, you know, but I got to find him first, and this is the process, and just, you know, not thinking ahead, enjoying the time spent out there, and enjoying the actual process and the chase is just, it's what it's all about, and it's cool getting back to that. So, just having a different outlook on it this year has helped me. And honestly, a big contribution to that thing is like, and I'm sure you're probably wondering, a lot of people out there like, oh, is he pulling cameras? Is he pulling cars? Is he doing this? Is he still sticking with it? And I answer you, absolutely not. You know, I've you know, haven't looked at any cards, haven't touched a camera, and it jacks me up. It's one of the things that's, I think, helping me be so, you know, in tune with what's going on. I firmly believe that cameras have they've taken out woodsmanship. They've taken out the
The mystery,
they've taken out what hunting is. They really have. I mean, and it can be a good tool, and there's guys like yourself that are using them, you know, in accordance and using them how they, but it does, it removes something from the process. Like, dude, I can't tell you how jacked up I am when I see tines through the timber, because I have no idea, Byron, what it is. I have no idea. I have
Mhm.
nothing to look back on in my mind like, oh, that's the 8 with the crab claw, or like, oh, that's the 10. Oh, this is that small 140. There's none of that. It's like the unknown, and the
Mhm.
unknown excites me. And I know for some people that can be depressing, but or not knowing if they have a deer of the caliber, but it's like when you remove that factor, I think there's a lot more enjoyment in it, and that's what I'm experiencing. So it's cool.
Nice. Well, I think we obviously need to break this down. And I'm sure the listeners are like, are they going to get to the buck breakdown? I think we need to start with the fact that you started your season out of state. Um, can I ask why, and what was your thought process there, kicking that season off in Illinois?
My thought process on this year is going back to 5 years ago. I mean, and not that I haven't been successful in the last 5 years, but like I think back to when I used to be more fly by night with hunting, and I don't, maybe that's not the right word, but so, and a lot of people, I'm trying to think of the best way to explain it. So I used to always start somewhere out of state just to, man, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know. I had no reason, because I had not stepped on foot on that property until, or since last November, or no, maybe December. I was there one time. No, I think it was Thanksgiving. I haven't stepped foot on that property since Thanksgiving of last year. I
Okay.
mean, that's just typically the way, and it's even, and people get shocked when I tell them that, but it's the same way with the home farm, the farm that's down the road. Any lease that I may have, like, I do not badger those pieces, and I don't scout, and I don't do anything out of season. It's just, and it's one of those unknown factors too. It's like, so I was just looking forward to, a fresh slate, just getting out, being in my trailer, just kind of being by myself, just hanging out a little bit. And there were some other guys hunting down there. But just getting away, I guess. I was just in need
Okay.
of a getaway, and that's where I thought I'd start. And
So it wasn't like, oh, let me ask this. Obviously, the home farm, home turf. I would assume you would never leave the home turf if you had a bead on something there that was
but
something you were after.
here's the thing though.
Yeah.
Now I have no beads on anything. So now
Oh,
everything is literally just, there's no difference between my honey hole piece, or between a new piece I've acquired. Like, I literally even thought the other day, I got a lead on a piece, or just a lead, I guess, or a reference of a good piece of ground in North Dakota, and it's like, oh, well, maybe I'll go up there, because I don't really know. I mean, now that there could be a giant in the backyard that I don't know about, but whatever. But that's what I'm getting at. Um, there's none of that. Ooh.
okay. So let me ask this. Did you drive down either a day before and do some glassing, or did you literally the day before season, I'm taking the trailer, and head down there, or did you go a day early?
I got down there. No, I got down there, literally, I got down there probably 8:30 p.m. in the dark
Mm.
before hunting the next day, and just, went in the first morning with the .5 on my back, and I actually got into some bucks that first morning. I actually walked in, I bumped two deer that were sparring. It was cold, man. I haven't hunted Southern Illinois with temps like that early. I don't know, ever.
Yeah,
It,
yeah, it was a
but
phenomenal, like, kind of October opener for those states, really across the Midwest. Um, you said you bumped or heard bucks sparring in the dark. Did you? I guess your first sit there, walking in, did you just say, "Hey, I'm going to go to location X"? I guess why were you going to
now,
this first
yeah,
sit?
yeah. So I mean, if you look at the breakdown overall, now this being like, now this is a piece that I've hunted before, so I do have. But like I said, and even every time when I'm in this position, I think about years past, and I think about, whatever. And I try not to do that. I try and just look at it as a new piece. So I was looking to systematically see what was going on this entire farm. Like, now I have no cameras I have no prior intel. I mean, other than like talking to a couple guys that actually hunt the farm, they had been running cameras. They are both kind of, I mean, in their heads about where they're going or whatever. But I even tried to, like, it's funny because they were like a little bit out of shape with me because they would start talking about like, oh, like, well, like, what do you think about this? Or like, where are you going to go? And I'd just be like, oh, and I'd change the subject and just like, just because I didn't want to think about it. I didn't want to think about, and I just wanted to get out there, get in the timber, find where I needed to be, set up, and get into some action. And that's exactly what I did. And I was trying to keep it. I need to keep myself from overthinking. So
Okay.
that's what, but in a general game plan, it was okay. I have no cameras. I have no prior knowledge. Well, I need to gain that knowledge now. The only way to gain that knowledge is to go and see what is going on. If I have nothing telling me, nothing buzzes on my phone, I don't see fucking pictures, or nothing,
Mhm.
I mean, and that's just like what everything is nowadays. So, I got out there, I started in one corner of the property, and I ultimately killed. It's funny now that I look at this, and without even thinking about it, I ultimately hit the whole property in quadrants and ended up killing in like the fourth quadrant I hit. If you
Okay.
if you would if you would kind of think of that. But where a lot of people get hung up is even now, um, like if you check my story here in like the Iowa hunt, I got so many messages. Oh, why'd you leave there? Like you were seeing bucks, like there's good sign. You didn't think that was the buck that I'm just like, well, I just it's not what I'm looking for. Like I just know it's not what I'm looking for. So I'm moving on. So it's the same principle. Um,
Yeah.
got to keep
So,
on keeping on.
yeah. So let me steer you back to this opening morning hunt. You obviously go to an area. Was it an area you could
So
get visual advantage, or what were your
yep.
thoughts?
So there was actually I actually went pretty deep and pretty thick right off the bat. There's the entire property was actually in beans. So I knew that deer wouldn't be, well, there was a lot of corn bordering, but I was anticipating deer using the bedding areas for actually bedding. A lot of times early they'll be out in the corn or whatever, and they'll be kind of scarce in the timber. So I just went to an area that I could, me, I'm not one for like straight up observation stands.
Mhm.
I don't like to see. So I knew that I wanted to be able to kill opening morning. So um what I did was I found, looking at a corner of the property, I just said, okay, now let me look at this corner. What would be the best spot, just best overall spot as far as a transition goes to the places that I knew these deer were eating and I knew they were feeding. And I got, that's where I started. I got in there in the dark, and then I let what I seen in the dark dictate where I actually ended up. And if I wouldn't have, I was actually going to set up, I probably would have seen both those bucks, what they were, and probably could have killed both of them if I would have set up where I was originally thinking. But I just kind of I pushed in a little too deep, a little deeper than I normally would for some reason, and I ended up literally pushing them out. I was like 10 yards from them. They were sparring. They weren't huge. I could hear them. You can tell the denseness of the rack or whatever. But I knew I was in the game right off the bat. And then that morning I seen some good deer. But then when the sun came up and I kind of did some looking around, I just moved on.
Okay. So I guess how, like, I know you do the morning post, you sit maybe that first hour, or I can't see you sitting more than two, just kind of knowing who you are. If you kind of didn't like what you saw that first hour, walk me through, the get tearing down, you just had your first hang of the year. What did you go and do at that point, kind of after your morning post? What were you looking for? What did you find that you liked? And
I I
talk to me
immediate
about that.
I immediately went back to camp, to the trailer, and started fitzing with all my shit because I mean, you find out, anybody who says this doesn't happen is a bullshitter. When you go on that first hunt and it's the first day of the season, first time you go out, like there's holes in your system, and there's shit that didn't go right or didn't go as you thought it would, or like, so there was a handful of shit, little tweaks and mods that I had to do to my stuff that I didn't like, that I wasn't efficient with, that like I, now kind of coming in, like, especially now with this different camera setup, trying to film this, it was just, so literally I was like, well, I'm not even going to look for any deer, so I'm not even going to do any poking around, because I need to get my shit in order, and I need to know I'm ready for war. So I went back to camp and just started messing with my stuff. Like, I think I actually put a double seat cushion on the stand. I did some taping to the stand. I put like, and it's funny because, like, getting into this, so I'm actually going to do a full on video of my exact mods so everybody knows I hunt with the 0.5 and 2 compacts. I've said that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is a video going through on all the little details and the things that I put on my personal setup that you might be kind of intrigued with, or like how I set it up and how I'm super efficient, and the little things that I do to it to make me more efficient. Like,
Yeah.
so anyway, so that's what I kind of went back and I refined that and finalized that little system. And I remember by like 2:00, I was like, okay, it's game on now. Like, now I'm ready. Like, nothing's going to stand in my way. Like, now I'm not going to trip over my own feet. I'm ready to rock. And then I pushed in and just did some scouting on the way in for that evening post. And one thing I was looking at was, I was trying to key in, being that it was cold. I knew the deer were going to be moving in general, but I just wanted to generally see the entire property. So my systematic approach to it was just to slowly move through the property in a way in which the wind permitted, if that makes sense. So, like, I mean, I'm not, obviously I can't, I wanted to start off at a different corner of the property just because I would have liked to sit there better. I think I would have seen more deer, but I couldn't because of the wind. So,
Yeah. Do you like to scout with the wind right in your face, or do you kind of like a crosswind?
no, I like, and I think we touched a little bit on
Yeah,
a
on the Bump and Dump
previous
podcast, we
podcast.
talked a little bit.
I personally, despite what dad says, what other guys do, I personally like the wind in my face. Like, I just, because, and wherever that deer is bedding, or wherever that is, and whatever may happen, like, I know that a deer is not going to directly catch my wind in the way that I'm walking. Like, and if I have my wits about me and my eyes and I'm looking, but more so, I didn't start using my tactic of, like, trying to bump up deer right off the bat. I just wanted to see where the deer were frequenting, because, like, every year, so prime example, I know where the oak trees are on this um piece, right? So I know where the oaks are held. Like, some years they drop, some years they don't, some years there's a bumper crop, some years they're very sparse. So what landed me actually in my second day was just due to those acorns. And so I went, checked that out. I seen acorns were dropping. Was the whole ridge tore up? No. But I knew that since those acorns were dropping, there'd be deer frequenting them, and I wanted to see what was coming in that area. So that was the morning where I was actually, like, freaking getting smacked. They were falling on my head and cracking me in the face. They were dropping pretty hard, and I seen 3 bucks that morning. They were all really, really small little bucks. The first two were, I could have shot and came nice and close, and that third one was that buck that I just got a glimpse of that I ended up kicking up. So then it became like, okay, here's a potential you know um shooter deer. Now we got to get a little bit more guerrilla with this, and kind of dive in deeper from there.
Yeah.
And that's what I did, and documented from that sit.
Yeah, well, I wanted to ask this as far as the oaks. You could tell they were hot this year as far as deer were using them. Could you see any buck sign, or did you catch any better tracks, even from the buck you might have kicked up, or anything that made you say, okay, this is happening? Or did you just say oaks are falling this year? This is generally a good time a year to hunt these oaks. Any
Yeah,
additional thoughts to the setup?
I knew they would be hitting those oaks early. I didn't even, and that's the thing too. I think sometimes people look a lot deeper than they need to with shit like that. Like, if you got a good oak flat and they're dropping, and you can see the deer are hitting them. Like it doesn't need to be completely shredded for you to fall into luck there. I mean, I've had good bucks, like good 150, 55-inch deer come through in the past, give me 5-yard opportunities, on a ridge or an oak flat that looked like it was barely touched.
Hmm.
I mean, it's just like, and they might come in, man, it was cool. I got some really good footage, man. They started just cracking them things like so loud when they eat them. You can almost hear them like a ridge over. But yeah, so I knew I had a really good win for that spot. It was a good place to get some intel on. And I knew the deer would be hitting those acorns. So I didn't look any deeper into it than that. There could have been, a sign over the next ridge, but I also don't like to push deeper than I need to. And it's funny because this second morning, so the first morning was like, I did the opposite. I should have set up, but I pushed in deeper and I kicked up those 2 deer. So the second morning I go in with that in mind, and I wanted to get on the second ridge, but I was like, oh no, this looks good enough. I'll just get on this first ridge. If I would have been on that second ridge, I would have killed the buck I only got a glimpse of, which was the biggest of the 3 that I seen that morning. And it just solidified in my mind that I knew exactly what I was doing. I should have been where I wanted to be originally. But at the same time, you got to roll with the punches too. So
Yeah.
it
So,
looked good.
so let me ask this. So after day 2 morning, what did your midday scout look like from there? Because you saw some better bucks at a distance. Was that when the bump occurred? I
Yeah.
believe.
So that buck skirted me, and I got the binos on him, and I could just see this tree bending over this little
Mm-hmm.
sapling. I mean, like, and I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, this could be a good one. And I'm looking through, and I could just see the tips of tines, and it looked like, I'm like, oh, that looks like a good cage. And, I couldn't tell. And he moseyed off, and I knew, and he headed out into this 10-year field. And I'm like, okay, and my win was freaking right. So I had it in my mind as soon as he left, I'm like, okay, well, I'll find out what that buck was.
Mm-hmm.
And I finished out the morning, seen a couple more does, and then I got down, and I thought for sure in my mind, I was like, that was a shooter, and he's about to die in a couple hours, or at the very latest next morning. Like because like the glimpse I caught of him, I'm like, okay, it's game on. This is going to be a very quick seal the deal to this opening weekend. And when I got in there, and like I said on the story, I mean, one of 3 things was going to happen. It was like I was either going to sneak in and kill him in a few hours when he got out of his bed, or I was going to sneak in, figure out what he was, come back, kill him next morning, or I was just going to not want to pursue him and leave. And the third thing is what happened. But how I did that, I mean, I creeped up in there, and I knew he was going to be bedded in that area. It was just prime bedding right there. And
Mm-hmm.
the way he was like kind of staging around, rubbing trees, and I knew he was sitting down. So I went in real nice and cat-like, and actually bumped him, and he had no idea. He never seen me, he bumped because he might have heard me. He didn't win me. I know that, because if he did, he wouldn't have stuck around. And he jumped up and he did a couple bounds, and was actually standing right in the CRP and trying to see what the hell he ran from. And he's looking at me, and there was a lot more footage than what than the little clips that I put on the story, but he was standing there. And so what I did was I kicked him out of there. First I got the binos on him, seeing he was only like a mainframe, I don't know what he was. I think he was a 9-pointer, but he wasn't the caliber of deer I was looking for. So, and as soon as I knew that, it didn't matter what the hell I did. So I bugged him out of there. And then
But you're going to send me that pin, right, sir?
I will send you that. I'll give you the exact location.
I'm
Um,
kidding.
and yeah, so I and it's funny actually. I think I even said to a couple of the other guys, I'm like, hey, there's a decent one over there if anybody is interested or whatever. But so then I just moved on.
Okay. So that was kind of the end of your day two midday scout. Where do you pick up the pieces then for the evening hunt, knowing that buck's not what I'm after? I need to again relocate an area.
So I actually, so that third day, I picked up a track, or that second day, I picked up a track um, on a farther corner, or on another quadrant of the property, you will, that I seen. I just went and did a little poking around, and I didn't want to. And that's the thing. I think people hear me preach or about like the aggressive tactics and stuff, and by no means was I wanting to go in there. And there's other guys hunting the farm. Like, I wasn't completely just freaking tramping through the place, like, I mean, I'm systematically scouting it to find out some information, but I'm not trucking through bedding areas and stuff. I just got there. Like, there's no. I think a lot of people hear that and they're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go fuck this place up and go kick deer out of the bedding. Like, I don't do, like, and it may even look like I was doing that on the video, but that was a very strategic approach to that. I knew there was one buck right in there. I literally eased in 80 yards, kicked him out of there, and then I looped back around that entire area so I wouldn't kick any more deer out of that bedding area. So,
Okay.
like, I looped way back out there. I knew that CRP was that CRP is probably holding at least 10 deer that morning, and I didn't want to just go freaking wreck the whole place because I might have been hunting there that night. So I actually went to the border then, and I started, and I went to a different quadrant just to kind of see what was going on there. And I picked up a track, and I actually do believe this is the track of the deer that I killed because it was fucking huge.
Where
And
can I ask this? Where did you pick up the track and you
I
know?
pi- I picked up a track just on a edge of a bean field.
Mhm.
So once I seen it, I'm like, okay, this is a freaking huge track. Like, I'm like, all right. And um in my mind, I'm like, well, this I didn't even want to look any further because I've had really good lucks hunting just tracks. And I didn't want to go booger up this whole, like, there's a lot of ridges and there's a lot of bedding in this area. So, right? I mean, and you can easily go blow stuff out. And if you want to hunt, when I'm looking to hunt something that night, I definitely don't go trash through it. Maybe the next morning I will, but I found that track, and I was willing to bet that that buck was going to come back out, to that field at some point in time. So,
Had
um,
the, Cody, the bean field, was it completely brown at this
oh
point?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
They're not. Yeah, it was completely brown. There was but this is theoretically too the time where, and there's not a whole lot of scrapes, nothing really lighting up like that. I mean, it's early, nothing's doing that, but I knew that shit was about to be doing that, so even in this area, I just knew that buck was, that track told me that he was passing through this field, whether he was going out to the alfalfa, which I thought he was. Like, there's a big alfalfa field 500 yards over, a kitty corner across that field, out of some bedding. I just thought, okay, he's probably heading out of this timber in the evening because there's a bunch of bedding knobs, and he's probably just skirting this bean field, and then he's heading out to that green stuff to eat. That was my what I was thinking.
Okay.
So I popped on there for the evening and actually had, which could have been that track, but I don't think it was. That evening, I actually had um, and this evening's story didn't get posted. I still have the stuff, and I might throw it on there, but I didn't. I didn't because I waited too long, and I actually killed the next morning. So I was like, "Oh, I can't post yesterday's shit after this stuff now." So I started overthinking it. But I had a probably like 140, upper 30s, maybe 140, very very heavy 8-pointer come through.
Hmm.
And I mean, just like, I went in, stand on my back. I hunted where the wind permitted, and he comes out and right in the general area, and he had a good body on him, but didn't look like he was laying the track that I seen. And he actually worked through, and I seen about 3 or 4 does work through. So, um, but then after sitting and after thinking about it, I'm like, all right, maybe that was his track. He was a big deer. He was heavy, like he was an older deer for sure. And I'm like, shit, okay. Well, now I'm back to square one.
Sure.
And then so then I what's that?
Starting to doubt, you know, because you saw a big deer
Yeah.
in the area after finding the track. You're kind of like, man, like this might not
Well,
be the lead you're looking for.
yep. So I'm like, all right, well, screw that. That's not. I mean, he's not he's not big enough. So then I just started looking at. I'm like, okay, well then, you know, even at night, and when I woke up the next morning when I woke up the next morning, I'm like, you know what? I'm like, it still could have been. Let me go somewhere. Let me go somewhere that I'm safe if that track wasn't his, but I can also get into some deer, you know, some new deer essentially,
Hmm.
or like check out another piece. So, and I knew that there was some more oaks to way, you know, on this other end, and I wanted to check that. So I kind of met in the middle, and I said, you know what, I'm gonna go in the dark, and in the direction where this track is going, like this deer could be covering some ground. I've seen him go, I mean, clear mile, and you know, every day on a pattern. So what I did, yeah, is I went in dark, and then actually went into a hedge thicket, which for any who doesn't know, like it's super thick. It like you can't. A lot of people get deterred from hunting stuff like that just because, for one, you can't cover any sort of distance, and like there's limbs everywhere. But that's really like that's the way I hunt. Like I'm usually setting up on specific trails. I'm setting up super close. Like I love that. It jacks me up. I love that intimate closeness with the deer. And so I love going in these hedge thickets. So I go in there and I'm like, all right, um I'm just gonna scout on the way in. I'm gonna hang for something that could potentially be hitting those oaks, that's making their way back into this hedge to bed, because that's just, you know, it's what they do. They bed in that, they bed all over in that stuff. So, and now when I say hedge thicket and bedding area, this is a 60-acre chunk of timber. This isn't like a,
Mm.
oh look, there's a little like 20-foot by 20-foot bedding section. Like no, this is a big chunk of timber. So I went in, and actually I ended up being just I ended up stashing the second stick. I was one stick high in a hedge tree, just like I always do. And I was hunting um, a main trail that transitioned from where those oaks were to the bedding, and the one that I could get away perfectly for what the wind was doing that morning. And shit, Byron, I know I probably wasn't sitting down for 15 minutes when I seen that cage coming through the timber. And I knew as soon as I seen it, I'm like, oh, he's a shooter. Like,
Now, now let me ask this: was he coming from that alfalfa field where you kind of surmised that track was coming from?
no, he was coming from where the oaks were.
Okay,
He
so
was coming from where so I mean, but like that's where like you know, it's still, there's still that chance, because them deer work a lot of ways. He could have been going out there one night, over to the other place one night. That track could have been from that other 8 point. But the
hmm.
whole thing was like where I ended up that third day had to do with that track, and it had to do with those oaks, and it had to do with like the bedding that I knew of. So where
This
he was coming,
describes, yeah, this is pretty cool because you are literally taking some in-season scouting with kind of like the blueprint knowledge of the piece, and you're kind of like surgically going after these couple better locations, and now you've kind of fine-tuned this morning at this point, between these couple, you know, knowledge of the piece, the track, observation. You're covering another step here this third morning. This is pretty sweet. Okay, continue
yeah.
on, sir.
Yeah, and I've eliminated certain spots, and now and when I seen, so I knew, um, as soon as I caught glimpse, his right side coming through, I seen a big four and a big swooping beam. I'm like, oh man, this is a good buck, and knew instantly. And that's where, like, if I would have been typically like a lot of people do, everybody tries to hog an area, and I really try and stray away from that. And so this tree that I was in, and like, you know what hedge trees look like, they're
Mhm.
freaking wild. So just getting in a spot, like you essentially got one or two lanes, like maybe, and that lane, quote unquote, is going to be just like shooting a trail. So I hugged tight to the one trail that I thought was going to be my best option. Instead of I could have actually stepped back and tried to get like, okay, well, I can sort of hit this one and then that one. And then like, if he comes right through this area, I'll get lucky. But I didn't. Like, I went to the tree that was like, okay, I have a nice opening. I'll have a 8 to 12 yard shot at this deer. But it's going to be a money shot, like, and it's game over. And I might miss out on the other stuff, but like, I'm hunting this one trail. It's all I care about. So, and sure as shit, he comes moseying through there, and he makes that turn and starts coming right into that, right into my one trail that I'm set up for. Picture perfect. I always set my stands up in the exact same fashion, where I'm shooting right over my left knee. That same exact thing, happened, went on, and it was a perfect execution.
Okay, and maybe I couldn't tell from the GoPro footage or the camera footage. I swear I thought you drew, and it was almost like you were shooting back onto the other side of the tree.
So where I set the stand, so picture a hedge tree that is gnarly, right? And it's coming up, and then it had a huge, like, steering wheel sized limb that actually split, and it leaned forward. My platform was right on the right side of that split, because I was using that for like cover. So I'm sitting down facing forward, right over my left knee, right, or actually direct track of my left knee is that big tree. So what I actually had to do, because this trail, and my opening was right over the left knee, I can also, and I've done this in the past and I like doing this, I can also shoot straight in between like my crotch. Like, without, like, I can be sitting forward and literally, like right between your legs, shoot straight. So the trail actually kiddied right there, and that was the shot that I really wanted, because it had been quartering away like hard, and I would have just rammed that thing from way back all the way up. Like, but he was milling around a little bit, and like, I just didn't want to chance it, and I had an opportunity to move. So what I did was I actually had to lift my arrow, or lift my bow, so the arrow cleared that tree that was so close to me.
Okay.
So I lifted it, and I actually have this footage too. I'll send it to you. I grab my bow, I lift it over, and then bring the cam around that limb that's coming up real tight.
Yeah.
And I shoot, and then I pull back. So I'm literally just.
That's what I saw in the story.
Yeah.
And I thought that was the tree you were like essentially
Nope.
the base of the stand.
Oh, you thought I was turning around facing yep. No, the tree did a big fork.
Okay, that makes sense to me. You were in a
Yeah.
now I've got a painted picture.
And that's another thing. I have that whole setup breakdown on my phone too, and for some reason it never queued and never finished uploading. So I'm gonna toss that up there too. It might look weird to just be like, hey, here's random footage of that setup, but it'll go on the story then in the highlight, and you can actually watch it and see it. It's pretty cool. So it's one stick high. Yeah, it probably ended up being like maybe 8 feet, like from platform to, but where that buck was, like, it sloped up. So that buck was like eye level. Like there was no, yeah, like that, there was no drop in that arrow. Like it was just like a complete broadside shot.
Okay. So did you elect to stop the buck, or did you just smack him on the walk?
See, I never stop him. Every time I've tried to stop a deer, I've missed it.
Okay.
So I'm not about that. Like, I'm not going to lie. But what had happened was, when I had to clear that limb.
Yes.
And when I came to full draw, he heard something, or he seen me with his peripheral. I don't know if he's seen me, because I think a buck that old would have bugged for sure, but he heard something, and maybe I hit the limb or something. But when I came to full draw, he stopped, and he looked over, and I was like, oh shit, I hope he did. But I'm anchored right now, and he's right behind a hedge limb. And I'm like, I hope he freaking doesn't turn around. But he was like, oh, no, I just heard something. I'm fine now. And he took one step outside of that limb, and I let her fly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, arrow smacks the deer runs off. Tell me what is going through your mind, because you've texted me for the last couple of years and like, dude, I don't know. I'm going to wait. Like, you've had some horror stories, and did you feel pretty good at least right away? Talk me through what's going through your head.
This is the most horrible part. I Dude, I'm not, and I have this too that I was going to release, but and I'm trying to be fully transparent. But at first, what initially went through my mind, because he literally did 2 bounds, Byron. He bound off and he stopped,
Oh
and he
God.
turned around and looked, and I'm like, no, no fucking way in hell did I just miss that deer. Like there's absolutely no way. And he's standing there, and and he's looking around, and he's like, he ain't hunched over, he ain't nothing. Now this arrow was screaming out of this bow, and I got those iron wills out of there on there. And they're so sharp, and like I don't have lighted nocks anymore. Um, I couldn't see, I couldn't see. I just aimed. I aimed where I knew I needed to aim. I never seen the arrow actually go through the deer,
Sure.
but I heard a whap. So
That
then I'm thinking, what's that?
that deflating type, like you just.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know, but so I'm just thinking, I'm like, okay, and then he's just standing there. I'm like, so I actually knocked another arrow by him because I was like, did he?
Oh yeah, dude. I've
I
machined in some deer.
Oh no, like he was out of range to shoot, but I thought, this is an old buck. I thought
Mhm.
for a second he was like, did somebody just blindside me? And he was gonna circle back around, because I'm like, no way, dude, you missed him. How could this? Instantly, I wasn't even looking at the deer. I'm like, all right, it's game on. I'm like, I am gonna kill you tomorrow, 100 yards down the trail you just came in on, and you're gonna be sorry. Like that was where my mind went.
You were playing the next move already.
I was. Literally I was in, which was bad, because I look back at it and it's like that's the worst thing you can do, because I told myself, I'm like, okay, all right, you missed him. Now you gotta capitalize. This deer's a shooter. You gotta get on him. You gotta what are you gonna do? And I had my whole game plan mapped out, and um and I thought the deer had even like left. I stopped even looking at him, which is a ball drop, because you always want to keep your eyes on those things until they're completely gone and out of your vision. But he was in hedge; it's very hard to see him.
Yeah.
Now I got the binos back up, and I'm like I'm looking, and I thought I seen his tines way back through all the hedge, and I'm
Okay.
like, wait, is that him? Is he still standing there? Did he not go anywhere? And I'm like, okay, well, that's good. If he would have surely, if he was spooked or whatever, he would have been out of here. I said, maybe he's hurting. So then I started thinking, and I'm like, well, screw this. I got to get down. So like I got down instantly and went over, which I should have just waited if he was still out there, but I couldn't see him. I wasn't sure if it was him. I was like, I just need to find this arrow. Like, cause that's going to tell me whatever. And then I got down there and I actually ended up, well, first I'm going on tangents here, but first I went to look for blood right where I thought I'd see, because like right where he was standing, I'm like, in the way it lays out, it dips down. So that deer was no way he was going to see me. But I'm like, oh, I'm going to get to that spot where he was standing, because if I hit him and he was standing there, it's going to be a bloodbath. Like that was my initial thought, and I went there right off the bat. But you know how you are. You're in a tree. You're looking at it.
Oh yeah.
You don't really know where they were. It was super thick. So then I just went. I'm like, all right, screw it. I went back and I went to the impact spot, and like from 5 feet away, I seen the arrow glowing red. And it sailed through him and went 15 feet past him, and went into the dirt. So as soon as I seen that, I'm like, oh, that deer's freaking done. Like there is absolutely no way, no thought, no doubt in my mind. Um, and then I started looking around a little bit, and I couldn't find that blood spot. And I'm like, what the? I'm like, and I just couldn't.
You couldn't find any blood on the ground on the trail. He'd kind of
Well, there
took
was a
out of
there
there.
was a huge burst of blood. Like when you get that splatter effect
Mm-hmm.
right at impact, right by the arrow. So there was that like burst right there. It was almost like somebody like you spit it out of your mouth. And then about 15 feet behind that was the arrow. But then after that was very, very, very sparse. Now, mind you, this is like knee high
Oh
CRP stuff inside of hedge, and in this CRP is all, dude, it's like auburn and dark red little straw. Like I'm like it's like the worst stuff you can blood trail in. So I'm
yes.
like, oh my God, like whatever. I'm like, Jesus Christ. Well then, and it was very, very minuscule. But turns out, I mean, with that hit too, and after talking to some people or whatnot, it was it was uh it was a liver hit. So it was through and through in the liver. And this deer, Byron, was such a tank body, and he was so fat. Um, I mean, I think that hole just plugged up like instantly. Um, I mean, and he did end up. I'm trying to think. There was so we backed out. Um, Let me see here, because I poked around for a little while, and then actually backed out. And after talking to a few people, um, decided to give him like that 7 or 8 hours. Like, and I even thought I bumped up a buck when I got up or whatever. So I didn't want to rush it. I was like, okay, I got an awesome shot. I know he's dead. Typically, typically I find him right away. But at least in my mind, I was like, well, there's absolutely no way like this arrow put a hurting on him. And I knew there was no guts, but it was just,
Mm-hmm.
it ended up being a straight liver shot. Um, and man, when we actually found him, and you always, and even now, like I said, the unknown, I had no history with this, had nothing. When he came through, I seen an awesome side, and I thought the two things that stand out in my mind was like, oh, he's got a killer beam, killer fours, and it looks like he has a common base on his left side. Like, those are the three things I seen, and I was like, okay, after seeing that, like, it looked like a cow coming through the woods. And so instantly I was fired up to shoot him. But you never know what you're gonna see coming up on your deer, right? And then
Oh yeah.
when we came up on him from the back, I mean, I was just like, oh my God, look at that freaking, I mean, I actually measured it. That weird tiny head was 14 and a half inches. Like I mean, it was just so, like, just the deer was just really cool, man. I remember just being very jacked when I got up on him. His beam on the right side was like 26 plus, a little over 26. I mean, like, so
Oh wow.
he had a really good swoop on that side. Really good tine length. He had a busted brow. But the first thing that stood out to me too, it was like, I mean, this thing was freaking just a cow. And his face, Byron,
Yeah.
his face was just like huge, and he was gray. And I remember actually somebody, when I posted, or a couple people actually, or a lot of people, reached out to me and said that deer looked old, and how old do you think it was? And me, I'm always going on the young side, and I'm like, I don't know, I have no idea. But and then talking to someone around the area, he's like, I have a shed of that deer from like 3 years ago, guaranteed. And he was like, at least a 2.5. Like, this deer for sure was 6.5, probably even over that.
Yeah.
I mean, in the hoof on him, I mean, just huge hoof, huge body. Um, Great early season cape. I love those. And
Oh yeah. You get more of the brown tan
yeah,
kind
it
of
was
look.
cool character, man, too. It was just big common base, and just yeah, it was an awesome connection. So
Yeah. How far did he go? And was your shot better than expected? I
so
guess.
there was literally nothing, different I would have done about the entire situation after, like, after it all plays through, like, seeing the shot on the deer. It was directly center mass, right where I would aim. Now, since he was walking, like, it was just a tad far back. That was it.
Hmm.
He actually ended up only going, I'd probably say it was like 150 yards maybe.
Okay.
Um and he went right to well, so there's a creek bed down there that goes to a main river, and it was dried up, and there's like little puddles and stuff. He went right to the creek bed, to a deadfall, and laid down right by the water. Like, it was just, I mean, and there was like just a puddle of water, but you could tell he probably walked there. Um, the but yeah, I mean, looking at the shot placement, I wouldn't have done anything differently. I've crowded the shoulder for many a times, and it's a fool's game to crowd that shoulder, because, I mean, if he would have stopped on a dime, then, and all of a sudden you're hitting that shoulder. And so yeah, so the shot was good. Nothing I would have changed with that, but it was and the back straps out of that thing, man. Oh my goodness.
I saw the pic the other day, man.
Dude,
Those are
those back straps for days, man.
so,
Those
so Anna's got some fajita, some taco recipes coming, right?
dude, yes. Tacos for sure, man. I wish it was a little colder. I would have let it I tried to age it a little bit. But these yeah, dude, tacos for sure. That's gonna be the first meal. Haven't ate anything yet, but got some good throw them hindquarters in the slow cooker and do the old get some Mexican spices on there.
Ooh.
We're game on.
Nice, nice, man. Well, I want to wish you a congratulations. Just from me, I kind of have known, oh, last year was a rougher year for you. And to start this season out with a bang, few days in, out of state, the newer stand that you know, your baby really putting it to the test, and just kind of a heck of a kickoff, you know, for Lone Wolf Custom Gear and yourself.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. I mean, it's one of those things where like, yeah, last year, man, it was an awesome year and a horrible year at that too. And I think it was a big thing, just, you know, I mean, between stress and just a lot of bullshit. But um yeah, I mean, it was nice to get one on the board, but honestly, I'm not even it's weird just enjoying being out there this year and just trying to, you know, use that time, you know, time to get away a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. Well, dude, that's a heck of a big buck breakdown. I yeah, and I would we're gonna post maybe a couple of these videos that we've talked about here in your story, and I definitely would encourage people to be checking that out. Cody, anything else you wanted to throw in here on today's podcast?
Uh no, man, I think that's pretty much I mean, it's cool to just get the story out there and you know, like we talked about, if anybody wants to see kind of that story unfold a little bit and or see it, you know, see the buck up close and personal, see the, you know, bumping that first deer and the setup, and just go check out the highlights um on my Instagram page, and I'll be throwing up some more stuff there. And you know, just like I'm doing here with Iowa, the next hunt has began, and I'm gonna try and document the entire season. So
Yeah, that's been it's been fun to watch. I almost sometimes like some of the little commentary, and I love the setup videos just because, like, I don't know, I kind of geek out on some of that little the ambush points and stuff like that.
yeah, it's funny because I was like, oh, I had a good idea. I'm like, hey, every setup I'm gonna like do a hey, today's setup and this is what it looks like. And I like, you know, but I'm like, oh shit, then I gotta get out of the tree to actually film the setup and then get back in the tree to take it out. And I'm always like one done. So I go up, hang it, come down, and it's down. And I'm like, oh, it's too much time. So so I scratched that one, but I've been thinking about
When time allows.
yeah, yeah. Like that's like when I killed that buck, that's when I went down and I was like, okay, well here's the setup because I left it up there. I'm like, you could see how high I am, whatever. But
Yeah. All right, Cody, curveball question. I didn't prep you for this. This is a fitness meets deer hunter question. I noticed once season got in, I'm starting to scout. You know, I'm doing a lot of scouting right now. I don't have the bead yet on anything that I'm truly happy with. And dude, I will tell you this, and I've done a couple like little scouts before work where I'm just, you know, I'll pull a card in the dark and then walk a little bit of transition or something or whatever. My hamstrings are on fire, dude.
yeah,
And I don't know if it's because like I can't, like I'm walking in the timber and I'm doing like elevation, or it's the uneven footing. But dude, like I think I need to step it up in the gym and be doing something to compensate for this.
dude, you need to start working that posterior a little bit.
Okay, well
Yeah,
get hit me with a couple tips here before we jump off.
dude, I would, you know, I mean, I would start doing some glute ham raises and some Bulgarian split squats, man. Like if you ask me, like in my opinion, there is no better posterior or actually overall leg crusher that will, you know, prep you for anything you're doing than Bulgarian split squats with weight. You can hold weight in both hands, you can hold weight in one hand, you can put weight on your shoulder. Like whatever you do is going to be miserable either way. And just take those puppies to failure. And then once you can't go anymore, drop the weight and do some more. Like that right there, I mean, is going to be, and even if it's lightweight, man.
Yeah. I'm always game to do volume and working stuff till failure. So I will definitely, I need to step it up, man.
Those are good, man. And I do a lot of that. It's probably just, not used to freaking, the elevation definitely does that too, going up. Like you get a little hammy burn in there for sure.
Yeah, it's a different than a true walking motion. But yeah, I thought I'd throw that curveball right up your alley. Deer scouting meets fitness. I had personal question had to ask.
Oh hell yeah, man! That's keep trucking, keep them coming.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, I think at this point, let's wrap her up here and wish the people best of luck here in this mid-October time frame. And we're going to try and get, we kind of have a standing time slot that when hunting doesn't disrupt, we're going to hopefully keep these coming.
Yep. Yeah, we're going to try and be more consistent. But, dude, tis the chase, it's on. So hopefully the next episode we'll be talking to Byron about his kill or the old man or whatnot. So look forward to it, man. Good luck to everybody out there, and be sure to send us your photos when you do get something, because, man, we'd love to feature those things.
Absolutely. Be sure to tag Lone Wolf Custom Gear on Instagram to get featured on our Fan Fridays. Cody, I think we're good.
Yep.
All right. We'll see you.
All right. Have a good one, guys.